Hey, welcome everybody. Francis Donald here. Welcome to this Gemini pre-full moon meditation. It's the first day of the Festival of the Christ, also called ASALA, the Festival of Goodwill, and the Festival of Unification. This is the third and last of the great annual festivals. The Wesak we did at the conference. And so, now we're moving into the Festival of the Christ. So, DK says, this will be the festival of the spirit of humanity, aspiring towards God, seeking conformity with the will of God, and dedicated to the expression of right human relations. This will be fixed annually in relation to the full moon of June. It will be a day whereon the spiritual and divine nature of mankind will be recognized. On this festival, for 2,000 years, the Christ has represented humanity and has stood before the hierarchy and in sight of Shambhala as the God-man, the leader of his people, and the eldest in a great family of brothers. Each year at that time, he has preached the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy. This will therefore be a festival of deep invocation and appeal, of a basic aspiration towards fellowship, of human and spiritual unity, and will represent the effect in the human consciousness of the work of the Buddha and of the Christ. So today's meditation will, as always, feature the visionary artwork of Nicholas Roerich. The exact time for the Gemini full moon will be in 2 days, on Tuesday, January 14th at 11:52 a.m. GMT. The specific Gemini keynote for today is love. Let's start by taking a very brief look at the astrological chart of the full moon, because we got a lot to cover, so we'll just take a moment. Before we get into the aspects, make note that the energy of the eclipses is still very strong. And though Mars has moved out of conjunction with Jupiter in Aries, its warrior energy is still very present, as Mars is the exoteric ruler of Aries. So especially if you have any activity aspects around this 15th degree of Aries, that will be a strong influence. Also, Saturn has gone retrograde, bringing the influence of this planet of opportunity into an introspective phase. A good time for setting up a more focused spiritual discipline, and since Saturn is in Aquarius, we have the opportunity to intensify our group work. So, this Gemini full moon is unusually close to the Earth, making it larger and brighter, what is called a supermoon. And though not marked on the chart, it is in close conjunction with the galactic center, thus aligning it with the creative source of our galaxy and the recently photographed black hole at its center. It's in conjunction with the center of our galaxy. This alignment taps into the energy of creative renewal, both personal and planetary. Okay, all through the spring, the energy of the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction conditioned our aspirational lives. With this full moon, Neptune again comes to the fore, this time in a T-square with the sun and moon. Whether for a nation or an individual, Neptune can represent deception, both with others and with oneself. So this T-square, with the sun in Gemini representing the second ray mantram, I see the greatest light, and the supermoon in Sagittarius reflecting that light with greater intensity than normal, can have the effect of revealing any deception and glamour that needs to be brought into the light of truth. Either we'll see it internationally and in your own lives. This T-square naturally works with Pluto's current position in the last degrees of Capricorn, which is in a years-long process of dredging up all that needs to be transformed. I think it's going to be in these last 2 degrees, 3 degrees of Capricorn for until like 2024. So a big part of the years of the Forerunner, these last years of the Forerunner. Last, but definitely not least, Venus, the exoteric ruler of Taurus, has moved in conjunction with Uranus and with the North Node in Taurus, bringing with it the possibility for sudden aesthetic insight. It also carries the energy of emancipation, which in directed use by disciples can help to dissipate that which Pluto and the T-square with Neptune reveal. Okay, let's take a quick look at Gemini, whose exoteric keywords are "let instability do its work," a reference to Gemini's position on the mutable cross, and whose esoteric keywords, which we'll be focusing on, are "I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow," a soul perspective. In esoteric astrology, DK tells us Gemini is related to the etheric body. It is the custodian of conditioning energy and the intermediary between soul and body. These are the two allied brothers. Gemini rules the hands. Thus, the spiritual hand gestures called mudras are especially relevant to this sign. You see that in this illustration. As mentioned, Gemini also rules the vital body, making the pran mudra, shown here, used to promote the circulation of prana in the etheric body, a quintessentially Geminian gesture. This is borne out by the form of this mudra. The raised first and second fingers indicate duality and proclaim the symbol of Gemini, while the 3 remaining fingers describe a circle, suggesting circulation. In this image, the soul is seen stimulating the primary triangle of centers in the head of its personality reflection by means of this mudra. You can see that here. Okay, one last quote from DK. Fluidity, recognition of duality, soul control. These are the keynotes of this sign and should be the keynote of your life. For whether you are in this sign in this life, it has at some time and many times conditioned your experience, and the results are marked in the life of the advanced disciple. Okay, let's take a look at the Herculean tasks associated with Gemini. In brief, the fivefold labor was and is to find and guard the sacred tree of wisdom. Actually, Hercules failed the first of these 5 tasks, which was to recognize the voice of Nereus, sent by the great teacher to guide him. A second task is a preview of the 8th. Hercules wrestled with Antaeus, but could not overcome him until he lifted him into the air. DK describes him as a serpent, but he's usually portrayed as a man or a giant. The idea of depriving Antaeus of his earthly environment applies here, just as lifting the Hydra to deprive it of its swampy environment applies to Scorpio's eighth labor. The third task was to overcome the influence of the arch deceiver Busiris, shown illustrated here, whose work was to, quote, bring delusion to the sons of men through words of seeming wisdom. Hercules fell under Busiris' spell for 1 full year, growing ever weaker, until he finally realized that the truth he was seeking was within himself. He then, and this was an act of compassion rather than of revenge, he then tied Busiris to the altar that he too might come to the same realization. That's an interesting detail. There's a reflection of Castor and Pollux in this interaction. The fourth task was, in spite of Hercules' sense of urgency to find the tree of wisdom, to take the time to release Prometheus from his bondage. After Hercules completes this task, DK says, there has been no delay. The rule upon the chosen path, which hastens all success, is learn to serve. The fifth task, wherein Hercules relieved Atlas of the weight of the world, was again about self-forgetfulness through service. He closed his eyes, bracing himself with effort, and lo, the load rolled off, and he stood free, and likewise Atlas. Before him stood the giant, and in his hand he held the golden apples, offering them with love to Hercules. The search was o'er. The sisters three held still more golden apples, and pressed them likewise into his hands. And Aigle, that fair maid who is the glory of the setting sun, said unto him, placing an apple in his hand, the way to us is always marked by service. Deeds of love are signposts on the way. Okay, let's turn to our meditation. The tradition that Michael established over many years of these pre-full moon meditations was and is to build the group Antakarana through visualization. So before we get started, I'd like to do a quick review of the first 3 stages for building the Antakarana given us by Master DK in Rays and Initiations. These stages are intention, visualization, and projection. Intention, the first stage, develops the ability to consistently hold a sustained point of tension without straining in the mental unit shown here. So it's not about that kind of tension that is normally used in English. It's really a point of sustained attention. During this stage, we gather our energy, focus it at the highest point of mental consciousness, and then hold this focus in a state of unwavering attention, which allows us to build a reservoir of mental energy, which we later use to build the Antakarana. DK tells us, when this has been accomplished, there will be found to be present a focal point of mental energy which previously had been non-existent. The mind will be held steady in the light, and there will also be the alignment of a receptive, attentive personality and a soul oriented towards the personality and in a state of constant, directed perception. The second stage is visualization. DK says, Now the right point of tension has been reached. The reservoir or pool of needed energy has been restrained, and the bridge builder is ready for the next step, which is to imagine a blueprint of the bridge we intend to build. This is a feeling activity. Regarding this stage, DK says, sensitivity as an expression of the astral body is the opposite pole to Buddhic sensitivity. Thus, through intuitive stimulation, our imaginations become more refined and purified, enabling us to gradually become more responsive to impressions from the Buddhic plane. We start with imagination, we set up this polarity, and eventually it opens the door to the intuitive world. And in concert with that mental reservoir of energy, we're able to move on to the third step, which is projection, and is a combination of will, intensified visualization, and the use of the ray word of power, which for this second ray group is, I see the greatest light. You can also use your own soul ray word of power when you're doing this to build the Antakarana. DK says, each disciple, this is kind of a summarizing statement, each disciple having successfully organized the bridge substance, that's the first step, having brought into activity the will aspect, proceeds now to move the organized substance forward, so that from the center of force which he has succeeded in accumulating, there appears a line of light substance or projection. This is sent forth upon a word of power, as in the logoic creative process. So you can find more info on these stages in a PDF, the section on the Antakarana from Rays and Initiations, which I've put in the chat box. It's not the whole book, it's just that relevant section on building the Antakarana, some of the best material in all of DK. Okay, with these three stages in mind, let's begin our meditation. So, spines erect in order to align our chakras, and we begin to take deep breaths in order to calm our physical and bring into alertness our etheric bodies. And then we can check in on the astral and in our astral bodies and calm any emotions. And now let us lift our focus onto the mental plane and enter into the presence of the soul. As we deepen this contact, feel yourself moving into a field of light, of love, and of spiritual power. This is the soul field of humanity. Now let us merge ourselves as individual souls into a unified sense of the group soul, We can facilitate this merging by visualizing a ring of white light with each of us as points within that ring. And at the center, the Master DK, one with the group soul. Another way of coming into this field is to visualize and send love to a sister or brother on the path that you are closely connected with, and experience that merging, and then turn to another group brother or sister and gradually build the field until we are all one within this group ring past none. Now, as our unity strengthens, extend this sense of inclusive connection outward to the spiritually minded people of the world, including all men and women of goodwill. In a conscious act of further extension, let us visualize our group soul merging into the one soul of humanity. In this inclusive act comes the realization that there is no my soul and thy soul, but just the group soul, which is part of the soul field of humanity. It is from the living awareness of this unified field of consciousness that we can truly say, naught is but me. Now let us as a group bring to bear the will aspect of the soul by visualizing a potent point of tension within the mental unit, demonstrating as the color of your soul ray. This point of attention will form the foundation of your Antakarana. As we do this, we can also create the base of this group Antakarana, which is the second ray indigo. Now let us visualize our dual-colored individual Antakaranas. That's the dual-colored is the personality and soul ray colors, connecting the mental unit with the monastic permanent atom. Imaginatively visualize this connection. Now let us visualize all the strands, all the 7 colors of our individual Antakaranas merging, interweaving into the group Antakarana, which glows with these 7 colors, but primarily the deep indigo blue of the second ray. Now, as we identify with the group soul, we will at the same time speak within the word of power for the second ray. I see the greatest light as we, as a group, project this stream towards the spiritual triad. I see the greatest light. From the point of group tension on the mental plane, imaginatively project a line of vivid, living white light into triadal realms. This is sometimes called the searchlight of the soul, which is cast in 2 directions. Our group light is met by a light from on high. In the presence of this great light of the spiritual triad, let us as a group attempt to feel the presence of the Great White Brotherhood, of the Lodge of Masters, and of the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. With heartfelt gratitude, we offer our salutations to the Masters and to the head of the hierarchy, the Christ. Salutations to the Buddha, the Lord of light and wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the master of all masters. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we work most closely. To Master Moria. To Master Kuthumi. To Master Dual Ku. Salutations to the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. Now, as a group, let us lift our thoughts to Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known, and with deepest reverence and in all humility, attune to the presence of Sanat Kumara, standing at the center of Shambhala. It is in this heightened state that we can come to realize that Shambhala is the planetary center through which the energies of the constellations and the planets enter our world to be distributed to all living beings on Earth. Now let us briefly acknowledge the three planetary rulers of the constellation Gemini. Mercury, the exoteric ruler, revealing the nature of the pairs of opposites. Venus, the esoteric ruler, providing us with the means to unite the pairs of opposites. And the Earth, the hierarchical ruler, which represents our field of service. Now let us turn our attention to the solar logos, who expresses its great life through all parts of our solar system. Let us, as a group, come into a feeling awareness of the second ray of love wisdom, that great field of energy which pours into the system through Gemini, through the solar logos, through all the planets, through Shambhala, and through every monad, soul, and personality on our planet. Now let us lift our attention to the constellation Gemini, radiating the light of interplay. This is a line of light revealing the basic duality of manifestation, and thus the conscious relationship between spirit and form. Let us project our imaginative awareness into this Geminian stream of energy, attempting to realize its profound relationship to the second ray of love, wisdom, which carries within it the great forces of reconstruction, making possible the rebuilding of human civilization in accordance with the plan. Let us consider the esoteric mantra for Gemini. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. As we gradually become soul infused, our perspective on life and service shifts, and thus, with each passing day, our personality vehicles become more fit for service. We grow and glow. Let us now use the Geminian light of interplay to reveal to us the unfathomable brotherhood between the Christ and the Buddha, the two great avatars of the second ray, bringing East and West into spiritual union, symbolized by the fact that the Christ preached the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy. Let us ponder the following words from this great teaching. O Ananda, let a brother, as he dwells in the body, so regard the body that he, being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the body's cravings. Now let us turn our attention to the Christ, who is said to speak the great invocation on each of the 3 days of preparation prior to the full moon. Let us consider the first stanza of this invocation, designed to align the minds of all human beings with the mind of God. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. Let us together visualize an enlightened human race, thereby turning our planet into a great station of light. On each of the 3 days before the day of the Gemini full moon, Christ and his hierarchy are said to emphasize a distinct keynote. The first keynote is love, described by Master DK as follows. The keynote of love in its hierarchical sense, free from sentiment, emotion, and personal emphasis. A love that sacrifices and understands, that acts with strength and decision, and that works on behalf of the whole and not in the interests of any group or individual. Let us as a group enter this great stream of love, flowing to and through us to all humanity. We affirm our solidarity with the Buddha, the Christ, and the assembled hierarchy. We seek to identify with them and to merge our purpose with their purpose. We imaginatively merge with them and bless the world in silence. While still holding this high alignment, let us, with hands upraised and intoning the Om 3 times, send a group blessing to humanity so that it may rise to its true spiritual potential and thus fulfill the divine plan. We'll close with a great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh.